Yes, we'll continue, or we're starting, as a matter of fact, today with that news which broke yesterday about the JTF leader, Abubakar Shekau, who, as you see reported in the dailies, is feared killed. Well, only this day hits, it said, categorically, he's dead. We're joined this morning to look at these matters and a lot more by retired Captain Umar Aliyu. He's a security consultant now. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning, Chambali.
Well, interestingly, the way this actually broke, the way the papers are reporting it, a little bit cautious, but only this day just used that word, he's dead. And then response coming through from people out there, they also think, look, wait a minute, are we actually sure? And then you look at that, dates back to June 30, but the military says, look, top informant, top information we've got from top intelligence reports tells us this one. How does this really work in terms of how do people take this? Do they take it that he's dead? What do they see his body or not? Since the military has told us this is the situation.
Yeah, given the downtime from June 30th to date, there's definitely going to be room for some measure of doubt. That's one side of it, if we look at it from the people's side of it. But then, given the source of this information, which is the JTF spokesman, Lieutenant Colonel Sagir, you discover that that information is being officially released and it must have been sifted. It must have been tested for viability. It must have been verified.
Does that explain that downtime? Possibly?
Yes, possibly. I want to use the indicators and what I believe to be what we call the intelligence cycle. Okay. Information is passed through the intelligence cycle before it is released. The JTF would have done that. Then, other than that, we look at the social indicators. After the Sambisa attack, we saw a kind of withdrawal. We saw the terrorist attacks abating greatly. There was virtually a lull before Kanu came up. And added to that, based on information and follow-up I've done, camps that were raided, things were discovered that gave the impression that these people left here in a hurry. A lot of things were abandoned and they moved. Those they couldn't go with, they burnt outright themselves. So it's possible that the leader was injured and they had to abandon ship and they crossed over to the, they said Amichide now, and tried to patch him up, and he did not survive.
Because his deputy too was announced dead.
Indeed.
Bama.
Indeed.
Just before this
exactly.
Before this announcement.
So we are looking at...
No, sorry to come, because I wanted to go back to the Sambisa issue and fast track to what finally occurred, the mayhem, the massacre at the mosque. Possibly we're trying to tie some link into what you just analyzed now, possibly that truly he was injured and they moved him out. Truly the JTF, they were keeping tab on him until perhaps maybe the day he died was when, or at the point he died was when the mayhem occurred in that particular mosque, like a vengeance on the people.
Yeah, the attack on that mosque could be retaliatory. You know, it could be some form of retaliation for the loss that has been suffered. And if we go by the history of the Boko Haram, if we go by their operational modus operandi, I don't see them as a people who would have actually, dropped in the number of attacks they normally gave or did, simply because they didn't have Sambisa. Take it or look at it this way. Typically, Sambisa wouldn't have been the only and the single hub they had. So if Sambisa was taken, we can as well move to the next firm base.
Because of the way they are trained. They're trained
to
basically hit and move.
They are like nomads. They don't settle in one place. So it doesn't add up to have a group like the Boko Haram having only one firm base, as in Sambisa. There have to be other firm bases. Now, these firm bases may not have been activated, most likely because the two arrowheads are no more active, as in Shekau and Bama.
But those farm bases could be activated in spite of those two arrowheads that are gone.
Those farm bases could be activated, But that also brings us to the status quo as we speak. I see opportunity for members of the Boko Haram, and I also see opportunity for government and law enforcement. For government and law enforcement, having gone this far, we should be consolidating and looking towards moving from counter-terrorism to anti-terrorism.
Anti?
Yeah.
Because what we're doing now is countering.
Countering. Counter-terrorism is basically dynamic and military. Anti-terrorism is more democratic. It's awareness, information, and it's democratically oriented. It's the use of virtually no force to ensure that the root causes of terrorism are removed and addressed. And even where terrorists are taken up, they are given judicial trials.
It's a good thing you mentioned the opportunity for government because, you know, much as if this is true, if this information is true, I guess it's a major breakthrough for the Nigerian army and by extension the Nigerian people. But, you know, someone would say that the last time, in 2009, when the leader was captured, Mohammed Yusuf, we thought that they had, you know, finally broken the ring, and when he was eventually killed, however extrajudiciously, a host of people thought that was going to be the end of the group. But look at what we have now. It would seem that it only spread and became even stronger. How do you see us managing this victory, or do you think that we have any cause whatsoever to celebrate in the sense that this might actually send some people to become even more radical?
Yes, we actually are in a very sensitive situation now in this issue of terrorism, Boko Haram, and the state of emergency. This is a very, very sensitive period. What I look to see is we get to manage it properly beyond what happened during Yusuf's time. And I have said, as I said, it's an opportunity for government and law enforcement to actually begin to consider moving from counter-terrorism to anti-terrorism.
You think it's ripe enough?
Yes, it is. And on the other side, for the Boko Haram, it's also an opportunity to turn a new leaf. It's the end of an era. Okay? It's been 3 years down the line. They've been pursuing a course, and we've just had a string of fatalities. 2 leaders, or even 3 now down the line, 2 major leaders and 1 assistant leader down the line. Nothing is improving. It's an opportunity for the Boko Haram to see the end of an era and the opportunity to start in a different way.
What different way?
What the past leaders stood for, they've made their point. It's noted. Okay? The way they've come in the last 3 years hasn't given any positive dividends. So if you continue doing the same thing the same way, you're going to get the same results. So why don't we try another way? Why don't we put the violence option aside and look at other non-violent means of bringing about whatever their grouses are?
I was going to ask you if you still saw a role for the Amnesty Committee that was set up by Peace and Reconciliation Committee that was set up by the President, headed by the Minister for Special Duties. And one of the reasons why I asked that is I'm looking at this particular headline in The Guardian. The writer says no mercy for group, that's the army now, declares all-out war. When we declare an all-out war, do we also have room for peace?
Indeed. When you look at counter-terrorism, you would not be surprised at those statements. Counter-terrorism is aimed at suppressing or repressing terrorists, to meet with and take the terrorist cells out. It's a military thing. There is no room for negotiation. There is no room for, So when you are in the counter-terrorist mode, you are going to be seeing that kind of thing. For a typical tactical commander, this is an opportunity. He's gotten the Boko Haram standing on one leg. Now is the time. But then we are going to look beyond counter-terrorism, as I told you. We should begin to see. You see, there's no point cutting off a tree and having it grow back. But what can we use? We can begin to exploit other softer measures to go in there and reach out, reach further, It's an opportunity. Right now, I can tell you, with the death of our Muhammad Abubakar Shekau, definitely morale will be low within the adherents. They will be scouting for a new leader. In the process of appointing a new leader, there's a delicate balance there. Factions may come in. Yes, there will be dissents and ascents.
Because I was wondering, the psychology of warfare for this group, because
yes, indeed.
Given their training, they operate in cells, which are barely visible, unless, of course, you work with intelligence, and then they just hit and move. So one wonders, wouldn't they have prepared for this kind of scenario in case these 2 or 3 of them are out? The process of one just, because reports we had at the time, I think it was 2 years ago, a year ago, was that they were well established in terms of the hierarchy and the operation. It wasn't as flippant as people thought. So are we taking that for granted as well?
Yes, it tends, outwardly it looks like if we are, but I know somewhere something is being done. Okay, we may not be able to go into that, on air, but I want to tell you something about the scenario. Within every organization, there have to be what you call differing opinions. As I speak to you, it's an opportunity for the government on its side to exploit the fact that there is a vacuum.
How?
There is a leadership vacuum right now.
How would they exploit it?
Exploiting it is reaching out even further to these people and say, look, we can decide to sheath our swords. We've done enough.
Asking for dialogue?
No, not dialogue.
Oh,
okay. I tell you something. It's not about dialogue. Okay. It's about stopping what you are doing first. Then you come to the table. It's about renouncing this way of doing things. I don't really see a situation where you say ceasefire. So what happens if we don't reach an agreement?
Do you see them laying down arms willingly?
It's the wise thing to do. If you look at the history of terrorism, terrorists have actually never made any headway anywhere. Except if you look at the path of destruction, yes, they successfully destroy people and cause planes. Terrorism is self-destruct, not even to the victims, but even to the perpetrators.